Good evening everyone, thank you for joining me. A little bit of a late one today, been really busy. So happy Friday guys, you know, people are going out, people are enjoying themselves. I'm glad you're sat in here watching me because where else would you rather be? So what I want to talk about today guys is the Russian ghost fleet, oil and Antarctica. Some of my favourite subjects. So first of all, we need to explain and understand what we mean exactly by the Russian by the Russian ghost fleet. So, following the invasion of Ukraine, the G7 nations basically started they started a series of sanctions on Russia, which have largely failed and just cost us. But one of the things they did were the G7 nations, they sanctioned Russian oil, and they put basically a price cap on that, which was like, I think it was 60 US dollars per barrel. Now, it's been a failure, and everybody understands it's been a failure. And there was lots of ways to circumvent this. One of the ways that Russians circumvented this was, well, one of the things that nobody can enforce these sanctions basically. Once you're on the ocean, who's going to come and say, hey, you know what, that's Russian oil, take it back? It's just, a lot of these things are unenforceable. So they kind of had to go through the insurance route, but we'll come on to that later. So one of the main ways actually that they got around it was using third countries. So people like India, for example, were buying cheap crude oil, they were refining it, and then they were selling it back to us. So the reason our fuel went up was because our oil had to get refined in India, and then India shipped it back to us, and we got it in our fuel station. We paid more for it. The Russians got the same price for it. The Indians made some money, but we were sticking it to Putin. Okay, so that's the reality. These sanctions. The world is too interconnected now for sanctions to be able to solely affect one person or peoples, because there's so much trade and interconnections. So with the price cap then guys, I touched on it briefly. With the price cap, another way that they could stop the Russian oil from moving around was basically the price cap also barred Western shipping companies and insurance companies from any involvement with any transport of Russian crude oil. So straight away, it was like, hey guys, you can't insure your ships and you can't use Western ships. So that put Russia on a back foot. So what did they do? They started buying ghost fleets, basically ships of unregistered vessels, unmaintained, uninsured. That basically they were old ships. They were in need of service, but the Russians bought them through shell companies or whatever. And they operated them. Now, the numbers on how many of these ghost ships are operating, it varies between 500 to 600, and some estimates are as high as 1,400. The reality is, I don't think anyone quite knows. I think I'm confident that in between the ghost ships or dark ships or whatever you want to call them, there'll be some ships who are like grey ships, so maybe they want to get insured, and sometimes maybe they don't. Whatever pays the best. So that's the reality of the situation, and that's kind of in a nutshell the ghost ships. Now, obviously, with these ghost ships having no authorities or governing authorities on them, they cause problems. There's been problems in the Bay of Gibraltar, in Cuba, China, Indonesia. Maybe I want to say, yeah, we'll leave it there, guys, okay? So there's been a lot of these problems, and the reality is, who can stop them? We don't have an international naval police force. It's just not there. And the more these sanctions, and the more the West sanction other countries, especially the oil-rich countries. The more these guys are just going to increase their ghost fleet. So the reality is, the more we sanction their oil, the more dangerous the seas become and the more we pay for oil. And, you know, that's just the way it is. So Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, they all operate huge fleets of, you know, of basically ghost ships that, you know, you can't really tie them down to a port. You can't find out who owns them. They're not insured, but mostly they're carrying Russian oil. So it's estimated that 20% of the world's oil is transported through these ghost ships, ghost fleets. So that is a huge amount of oil that's moving around. So that's basically what your ghost fleets are, guys. All right. So illegal ships, depending on how you're defining illegal. Costs, they're certainly not illegal if you're Russian. They're not illegal if you're Iranian. But you know, it depends by what laws we're looking at. But they're basically ships that are transporting oil, uninsured and unmaintained. So, you know, and there's a lot of them. That's what I'm trying to get to with this, guys, and it's really difficult to police. So let's move on then. Let's talk about what one of the things that I think I don't know if any other channel is focusing on this as much as me, but it's something I've been speaking about for months and years, actually, in my personal life, but months and months and months, and I've certainly been one of the only people that are, you know, coming out and talking about this on, you know, on platforms like this. It's the oil around the Falklands. Well, it's not actually, guys. It's the Falklands and its relationship to Antarctica. So for those of you who watch my videos, whoever controls the Falklands controls Antarctica. So a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember when it was. I'll put links to all this in the description, guys. All right. So a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember, maybe even a month ago. Things happening so fast at the moment. But yeah, the Russians discovered in, you know, the British Antarctic territory, the Russians discovered a huge oil deposit, and that was, they're estimating this to be 33 trillion US dollars. Guys, that is like 10 times more than the war in Iraq cost. That is absolutely a huge amount of money. And let's be under no uncertain terms. All conflicts are fought over resources at some level. It's no coincidence that Ukraine is one of the largest gas producers in the world. They've got huge mineral deposits of things like uranium, of coal. So all these minerals that we need as humanity moving forward, and they all circle around energy. All these things are needed, and obviously in the Falklands, they've just found, off the shore of the Falklands, they've just found this 33 trillion pound, oil deposit, or whatever you call it. So let's bear that in mind now. Let's keep that in the back of our mind. Let's keep the shadow fleet in our mind. So let's now cast our minds back to when David Cameron said that the Ukrainians should be able to strike Russia using British weapons. And Putin's response was, we will strike British targets in Ukraine and elsewhere. So now, guys, all right, now we've got all this information and we're putting all these pieces together. Does it make sense that Russia would attack mainland Britain? No, it doesn't. It makes absolutely no sense for that to happen at all. There would be international condemnation, not that he's bothered. There would be a military response. Don't forget, Britain is still a huge nuclear power. I laugh about that because can you remember when the defence minister was on the nuclear ship and the nuclear missile just went woo? Kind of embarrassing, yes, but we're told that that's sorted now. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So with that, what Putin said basically, we will strike British targets in Ukraine and elsewhere. We've now got this 33 trillion pound pot of black gold, I guess, under the water in the Atlantic, and just off the coast of the Falklands. So the Falklands now becomes a very interesting target to the Russians, because if they take out the Falklands, if they can subdue the Falklands, Russia can then ally with Argentina, and they will have total legitimacy then to go in and take the oil from the water. Now, look what we said previously about Putin's ghost fleet. He's already got the fleets there to do it. He doesn't. Putin doesn't listen to these international laws or legislation. We've seen that from the past. Since 2013 we've seen that. So is it an option for Putin to strike Antarctica? Absolutely. For Putin to strike the Falklands? Absolutely. Will it happen soon? I don't know. He either will or he won't. Everything's 50-50, guys, right? And there's a few key things that need to happen first before a strike on Antarctica, before a strike on the Falklands looks attractive. So the British Antarctic Territory, it's 1/8. It's more or less 1/8 of Antarctica. Antarctica is absolutely huge. Go check it out, guys. In fact, I'll put links in the video. I'll put links in the description to this, guys. But the British Antarctic Territory is absolutely huge. 1/8 of Antarctica. Not only is it 1/8 of Antarctica, it also controls like the. If you picture Antarctica now in your head, you've got like a peninsula that comes off. It controls that peninsula, which is, it's the best place to land. And if you look back through history, Britain has always gone for entry points, in the sense that no jokes, you ex-military. Britain's also got always gone for the control points. Like take Gibraltar, for example. That's a control point. It doesn't matter how much of the Mediterranean you own, you have to come in and out past Gibraltar. So Britain can, close that off anytime they want to. All right, and that's the reality. That's why they're not going to give it up. So these are the control points now. And remember, whoever owns the Falklands controls Antarctica. That's why we need to keep control of the Falklands. So the two options that Putin has. If Russia strikes the Falklands now, Britain must respond, full military response, get everyone down there, defend the Falklands, defend that oil. And we should. If Russia strikes when, Britain's committed in Ukraine, when Britain's got invested a lot of their resources to Eastern Europe, then it's going to be very difficult for Britain to respond, because then Britain's going to have to fight a war on two fronts, and we're going to have to look, and we're going to have, Britain's going to have to say, right, do we commit to Antarctica? Do we commit to our British Antarctic Territory, or do we commit to our allies in Europe? Now, that question is out for the open. I genuinely don't know what the answer is. Time will tell as we move forwards and we see other political movements. But it's really interesting that when David Cameron got first appointed in his new role, one of the first places he went was the Falkland Islands. So it's really interesting, and everybody knows this, but it doesn't really get much media coverage. It doesn't get much media coverage because kind of nothing happening there at the moment now. But that is the reality of the situation, guys. The Falklands does control £33 trillion. That is worth, that's worth a punt for any dictator. 1/8 of Antarctic, the entry points, Not only that, not only the 33 trillion that's been discovered, but there's also in the British Antarctic Territory, there's the minerals that have not been discovered, or maybe they have been discovered, they've just not been publicised. And let's remember that there's the international embargoes that protect anyone from drilling there. I don't think Putin would bother observing them or working with them. I think if they wanted to, they would just drill. But let's just keep in the back of our minds, when we're thinking about this situation, that all this gets renewed in 2048 anyway. So I know that sounds like a long way away, but when we're moving forwards, it's like, what, 5 election cycles or something? So absolutely wild times, guys. I wanted to do this video now and get people thinking about Antarctica, about the Falklands, about Britain's other commitments, because now we've spoke about that. When we start to see rhetoric from Argentina, and you start to think, okay, so now why are Argentina buying fast jets? They've got no reason to buy fast jets. They've got no use for them. If they want to spend that much money securing their country, they need to invest in their military, in their police, bringing them up to date, you know, and getting rid of corruption. But no, they've spent millions on fast jets. They don't need them. So the only reason that Argentina may want the fast jets is to help Putin pummel the Falklands into submission. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can guarantee you that this is an option because of the money, guys, okay? It's always about the money, it's always about the energy, and it's always about the resources. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys, and I will see you later.